Like a ton of falling bricks, it's the Tetris movie.
It really, truly is. I felt like I was hit on the head with a whole bunch of bricks after 2 hours of Tetris. This movie's on Apple TV Plus. It's been out there for about a week or so. We thought we would catch up with it. If you're not subscribed, we'd love to have you join us. We're talking about Tetris, and we'd love to have you join our little community here. It's a lot of fun.
It's the perfect game. Tetris?
Tetris.
Tetris. Tetris.
Tetris. I don't get it.
Tetris is a movie about Tetris, and it exists in this weird intersection of like Air
and
the
Mario
Super
Brothers.
Mario Brothers
Yes.
movie. Right there in the Venn diagram is Tetris, and also in there is Bonnie Tyler holding out for a hero. Cash those checks, girl.
Well, I'll
Get
tell
that
you,
money.
it was in both of those, both this movie and Super Mario and Shazam too. So it's like, I think it needs to be on the shelf for a while.
Get your money, girl. So this is the true story of how a thing we know is just part of our lives came into existence, kind of like the Air Jordans. This is Tetris. Taron Egerton stars as Hank Rogers. He's desperate. He's hustling. He's trying to get the next big deal. He is working for a video game company, living in Tokyo with his wife and kids. Supposedly they have 4 kids. I only saw 3. I'm very confused about how many kids.
And the only one of them gets any major dialogue.
Right. It's confusing. So he's got a wife and kids living in Tokyo, working for a video game company. And when he is at CES in Vegas, he sees on the next display over, someone's playing this game, Tetris, and he is mesmerized by it instantly. The year is 1988. Boy, howdy, is it ever. And it's how he tries to secure the rights for Tetris and tries to make it the global phenomenon that it would eventually become. And so much of this movie is just people going in and out of rooms, people faxing each other things, people walking down hallways. And that's essentially what Air is too. But this makes me appreciate the power of the script of Air, and the way that it leaves room to breathe for these characters to do more than just talk about the thing that's at the center of the film, right? Like so much of the joy of Air is watching Matt Damon just sit down at a picnic table with Viola Davis, or watching Matt Damon and Jason Bateman, after hours at the Nike headquarters, and you get to know them through dialogue that is expository but does not feel that way. It just feels organic to how they exist and how they correlate to each other. Pretty much all of Tetris is like, who has the handheld rights? I thought the Japanese had it. No, I thought Atari had it. No, and it's so much of it is like the same conversation. It's like Beau is Afraid, but it's about the making of Tetris, because it's like the same thing over and over again. And like, come on, let's move on with this already.
It's like one of those New Yorker articles, about like the thing that you didn't know about this thing that you use all the time, and it's really long, and after a while you're like kind of skipping paragraphs and getting to the end of it. I was reminded of, remember how in Argo there's that whole tent scene where they're on the plane, and are they going to get out?
Yeah.
And then you find out later that was complete bullshit and didn't happen. And they just flew out and nobody cared. I find it hard to believe that in the true story of this, which, by the way, this movie is executive produced by Hank Rogers and his daughter and the Russian programmer who created the game, Alexei, I can't say it.
I'll look it up.
Anyway,
I minored in Russian in college. I'll look it up.
I find it hard to believe that there was an actual car chase involved in that story, but there's one in the movie.
Little bitty cars. Pajitnov,
sorry. I do not believe there was really a car chase. And so it felt like this desperate, like third act attempt to like wake us up again. But yeah, you're right. It's just, it makes you appreciate like the Aaron Sorkin walk and talk, because there's just so much ducking in and out of offices, and it gets so, but I've never understood the appeal of Taron Egerton, because I just found him really flat and just kind of grating after a while.
Right. And we need to be on his side, right?
Yeah.
Because he goes through so much shit with like the Soviets and the KGB and like his own marriage and flying back and forth all over the country, all over the world. He goes to London to deal with Robert Maxwell.
Yes.
played by Roger Allam, which is like fantastic casting. He was the original Javert in Les Miserables.
Oh wow, no,
he has that great voice.
You know, I mean, you have this interesting backdrop of like you've got Maxwell on the verge of bankruptcy, you've got the USSR on the verge of collapse. You know, but it just the pieces don't fit together.
Yes, baby, nicely done. No, it really doesn't. It's like, I know that somewhere in here is a more interesting story. And what the problem with it too is that it relies so heavily on like these little 8-bit interludes, like the transitional pieces between scenes where he's flying from one place to another, or like
during the car chase, the
apartment,
cars turn into
cars
little 8-bit
become-
cars.
And like the outside of his building in Tokyo will be all 8-bit, and then like it becomes like live action. Way too many needle drops, incredibly on the nose needle drops. Like, I've got the brains, you've got the looks, let's make lots of money. Come on, really? And of course, multiple versions of Holding Out for a Hero. And it's just, I just didn't care, you know? And it's interesting. It's an interesting study in like what goes right and what goes wrong with similar material, because you and I like process movies, do we not?
Absolutely.
This is totally the process of how a thing got done.
I don't care any more or less about Tetris than I do about Air Jordans, but I found Air like much more interesting in terms of how all that came together. This movie, I think, is really designed for people who are going to get at least a chub when they see the prototype Game Boy being unveiled in the Nintendo laboratory, you know. But unless you're that hardcore about this stuff, this isn't that interesting.
I want to mention Sofia Lebedeva, who is his translator.
Yes.
I liked her a lot. She brings a lot of life to it, and she's just adorable. And the running bit where she speaks English and she's using words that are accurate, but perhaps not the right word for the setting. Like the formality of all of her language choices are all kind of funny. So I enjoyed that interplay between the two of them. But for the most part, I just thought this was boring. So I am saying 4.3.
I said 4.5. It's on Apple Plus if you must.